Okay, for our opening remarks, we're going to have Dr. Donna Hicks start us off. Just a brief background. Donna Hicks is a, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Donna Hicks is an associate at the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs at Harvard, where she chairs the Herbert C. Kellman Seminar on International Conflict. Her work is devoted to advancing the understanding of international and inter-ethnic conflicts and developing interactive processes that can be effective in managing or resolving such conflicts. In addition to her work in the Middle East, Dr. Hicks founded and co-directed a 10-year project in Sri Lanka, which brought the Tamil, Sinhalese, and Muslim communities together for dialogue. She has been actively involved with the conflict in Colombia. For several years, she was involved in a project designed to improve relations between the U.S. and Cuba. Dr. Hicks is currently writing a book entitled A Matter of Dignity, Building Personal and Political Relationships. Dr. Hicks?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here addressing you and to say a few words at the opening of this really important conference that's looking at the relationship between the military and the Ivies and trying and designed specifically to seek understanding and to promote reconciliation. And I also want to take just 1 second to congratulate Ross and Lucas and all the other people who've pulled this off. I know how long it's been in the make, so and it's really exciting to be here with everybody, so thank you. And since I don't have a whole lot of time, I'm just going to get right to the point. I want to share with you some unexpected insights that came out of my nearly 20 years of working in the international conflict resolution world. And as Lucas said, I've worked in the Middle East, in Asia, in South America, on some of the most intractable conflicts in the world. And at the end, maybe at around year 10 of working with these parties in conflict, no matter where I was, my role was as a third-party facilitator of discussions designed to try to promote understanding and to reach some kind of an agreement about the issues that divided these parties. And I would be sitting at the table, didn't matter whether it was Israel, Palestine, or in Sri Lanka, or in Cuba. I'd be sitting at the table with some of the most politically influential people in these communities in conflict. And let me tell you, there was never an absence of good ideas designed to, reach agreements between these two parties. They were the best and the brightest, and yet, while they were talking about these political issues that divided them, very real objective political issues like power sharing, how to divide the land, what to do with refugees, all of these really critical objective issues, I realized that, that they actually had ideas that would satisfy the needs of both communities, that they created ideas that could actually serve both of their interests, but yet, not surprising to anyone here, they weren't able to sign on to the agreement. And I saw this everywhere. How could it be that these really bright people could come up with ideas that would resolve their conflict but not be able to sign on to them? What was happening here? So because I'm a psychologist and trained to tune into another kind of a conversation, after, as I said, about year 10, I realized there was another conversation that was taking place, but this one was like an undercurrent that ran beneath the table. It wasn't on top. It wasn't discussable issues. These were deep emotional issues that were preventing the parties from signing on to these agreements. And I thought, oh my gosh, emotional issues, right. We're almost going to get these politically influential individuals sitting here to talk about times when they felt they've been wounded emotionally. I said, it's never going to happen. So I started thinking, all right, what is this about? How can I name this problem in a way that people will find it easy to talk about? So then one day, I think it was in Colombia, one day I realized while I'm sitting at the table, this is an issue of dignity. This is an issue of dignity. Both parties can't sign on because they felt outraged that they'd been treated so badly, outraged that nobody was doing anything about it. Yes, the political issues were being discussed, but was anybody saying how painful it was to have your identity dishonored? Was anybody talking about what it felt like to be excluded from a decision-making process that affected a whole group of people's lives? Nobody was talking about this. So you can imagine, once I remember sitting there thinking, I've struck gold. If I can frame these emotional issues in the language of dignity, then everybody's going to be able to talk about them. So for 10 years, this is the second decade of my work around this. For the next 5 to 10 years, I started observing circumstances when people would have these emotional reactions. And I collected these data, and I came up with something that I call the 10 essential elements of dignity. And basically what they are ways in which we feel, actually it can go both ways, ways in which we feel that our dignity is honored, or ways in which our dignity is violated. So after I came up with this, I thought, okay, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to present this language of dignity to people. Because I know if I say to them, tell me a time when you've been emotionally wounded, nobody would say anything. But if I said, tell me a story, tell me a time when you felt your dignity was violated. And I can tell you, no matter where I was, whom I was working with, every human being at that table had a story. Man, woman, child. Everybody wanted to talk about times when their dignity was violated. So bingo, all right? So I thought, all right, now how am I going to actually integrate this into my work? What am I going to do? Well, one day I get a phone call from the Minister of Defense from a Latin American country saying, Donna, this person was a fellow up here at the Weatherhead Center. We have a year-long fellowship where people, many often from the military, come and just spend a sabbatical. This person was a fellow one year, and she said to me, Donna, we're having a terrible conflict between the military and the Department of Defense. It is getting ugly. It's in the media. Everybody's talking about it, and the president is fearful that the security of the country is being compromised by this conflict. And she said, could you possibly come and do a communication skills workshop for us? And I said, communication skills? I don't think so. But I said, yes, okay, let me think about it. And she said, come down next week, this is an urgent matter. So for the next week, I'm thinking, I don't want to do communication skills workshop because I don't think it's going to touch this issue. And so I said, okay, girl, it's time to put your money where your mouth is and develop a process that you can take these two groups through for 2 days and work on this deeper issue of dignity. All right. I get on the plane armed with my communication skills materials, and I'm thinking I still hadn't come up with a process. And I thought, all right, a fallback, I still do the traditional communications workshops. Somewhere over Panama, 35,000 feet, I get it. I knew exactly how I was going to address this group. I knew exactly what I would put them through for 2 days, and I just, I said, okay. So meanwhile, I had a partner who was going to be joining me in this country, who was a Latin American rock star because he was an ambassador. I don't know if you remember the incident in Peru where the Japanese embassy was stormed and hostages were taken by I don't know if it was Sendero Luminoso or not, but anyway, my partner, Ambassador Jose Maria Argueta, was the man who negotiated the release of all the hostages. So he was really well known in Latin America. He came, and when I asked him to do this with me, I said, I'm not sure what we're going to do. He said, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. So the night before, I showed him what I'd done on the airplane. He said, great. Next day, we go into the room where the military is sitting on one side of the table. The civilians from the Ministry of Defense are on the other side of the table. Nobody's looking at one another, cell phones, talking on their cell phones. It was clear that they did not want to be there. The civilians did, but the military was not excited about this. So especially communications workshops, I could see their eyes rolling. So another little added piece of this was that the defense minister said, oh, by the way, the president is going to be coming to introduce you. Oh, okay. So we're steeling ourselves for an even, more difficult time. And he said, she said, don't worry because he has to leave. He has an important meeting in the Capitol, and he's going to leave after he introduces you. All right, so again, the tension in the room is palpable. my partner and I are looking at each other. The president comes in, shakes our hand, says, "Oh, I love Harvard. I spent a year up at Harvard working with Professor Roger Fisher." And, I said, "Well, we're not part of Roger Fisher's group, but, I'm so glad that you love Harvard. That's a good start." So we get set down at the table, and the president introduces us, and he said, "Dr. Hicks, maybe you'd like to explain to our colleagues what you're going to do here for the next 2 days in your communications workshop." And I looked at him, I screwed up my courage, and I said, "Mr. President, with all due respect, I've been working around the world on intractable conflicts, and what I see here, the extent to which this relationship here has broken down, I can tell you that there's more going on than communication skills." And I said, "If you don't mind, my belief is that there are probably underlying issues of dignity that need to be addressed in order to repair this relationship. And my partner and I would really like to address these deeper issues of dignity in the next 2 days." Well, he turns to his scheduler, who was right next to him. He says, "Cancel my meeting in the Capitol. I'm staying for this workshop." The idea resonated to him. And the military and the civilians, they all, for the first time, gave me eye contact when I mentioned the word dignity. It was something deep. It was something that they could, they were, as I said, they gave me eye contact for the first time. So there was something that resonated for them as well. All right, so here I'm going to fast forward because I'm running out of time. We took them for 2 days through a workshop that was based on these 10 elements of dignity that I told you about. First of all, I'll tell you quickly the elements. When you want to honor somebody's dignity, you make sure that their identity is being recognized and honored, that they feel acknowledged and recognized, that they are included in the decision-making that affects their lives, that they feel a sense of safety, both physical and psychological, that they're not going to be shamed or humiliated, that they feel that they've been understood. They feel that they've been responded to when concerns come up instead of being ignored and being treated as invisible. How many do I have there? Autonomy. They felt that their autonomy has not been violated, that they were not being controlled or dominated. And finally, and probably most importantly, is the element of accountability, that if you do happen to make a mistake and violate someone's dignity, that you try to right the wrong. You take responsibility for what you've done. All right, so here's what we did. We had gave everybody 5 minutes to talk about times when they felt their dignity was violated. And nobody could interrupt. They had their day in court. All right, they had their day in court. And what we did, we took the 10 elements and put them here in little boxes. And every time somebody told a story, we would tick off an element. And by the end of the 25 stories that we heard, the entire boxes were filled. And what happened was, usually when one person experienced a dignity violation, it wasn't just one. It wasn't just, "Oh, I felt excluded," but it was the entire cluster of dignity violations. All 10 elements were violated at the same time. It was rare that didn't happen. So you can see, oh my God, all these injuries are taking place beneath the surface, but nobody's talking about them. Is there any wonder? Once you start stockpiling these dignity violations, all it takes, let's say you stockpile them for years and years, all it takes is a little scratch of the surface and something big is going to blow up. All right? How much time? Where's Roz? How much time do I have? Couple. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. All right, so here, now it'll be less. So here's the thing, and we can talk about it more if anybody's interested. Here's what I've discovered. At the end of this 2-day conference, this one general who would barely give me eye contact in the beginning, he didn't want to be there. He came up to me and he said, "Donna, I want to thank you. Not only did you repair this relationship here in the room, but I think you saved my marriage." So it was that comment that got me thinking, this is a human issue. This isn't a political issue. This isn't an issue with the military. This isn't an issue that's, focused only on international conflict. This is a human issue. And I would just invite you to think about today, think about your conflict in terms of how the other party might feel that their dignity has been violated, and how you might feel that your dignity has been violated. And here's an interesting and hopeful point to make. First of all, even if we have violated somebody's dignity, the good news is that we can always right the wrong. We can always extend dignity. I've done work on reconciliation all over the world using this model, and dignity is like magic. It's magic. When you extend dignity, especially to the person or the group that you felt you might have dishonored, it is the fast track to repairing the relationship. So you have to ask yourself the question when you present yourself to any human being, it doesn't matter whether this group or anywhere, do I want to bring out the best in that person? And you can do it by honoring their dignity. If I want to bring out the worst in that person, you can take the 10 elements and violate any one of them. You'll be sure to get the worst that comes out of it. And so the hopeful news here is that if indignity tears us apart, then dignity can put us back together again. So thank you and good luck today.